up guys, hope you're all well. So we have another midweek video which is all driven by a question, which was how do we know what properties to avoid? And I can't believe that I have never done a video on this subject. So I thought, what a great opportunity to bring you a midweek video, short, sharp and sweet, all on this subject. So I'm going to talk about the properties that I focus on, and those of you who follow me on Instagram and Facebook and have been watching my videos now for a year will probably know what I'm going to say. But I'm also going to talk about why I avoid other properties. Before we get into the video, I need you all to do me a huge favor and smash the like button, and don't forget to hit subscribe. What properties to avoid when you're looking to make an investment? Look, I wish it was a one size fits all. There was a little description that I could read out to you. It would take me 30 seconds. You'd all love my video, hit like, and I'd be one of the most famous YouTubers in the country. Unfortunately, it isn't as simple as that. And I'm pretty sure that anyone that you speak to or you ask this question to is probably going to give you a different answer. So that does mean that you will have to listen to multiple answers and take the little nuggets that are going to work for you, your desire, your risk factor in your location. And hopefully I'll be one of those videos. So let's get started. Look, as you all know, I really like the student market. And I don't just invest in that solely. I've got commercial property. I really like pubs and new build developments, but I stick to one geographical location. There's lots of different reasons behind it, but a lot of it is to do with my appetite. I don't really want to travel too far. I like to be within a stone's throw of all of my properties in case anything did go wrong. And I believe that one of the reasons why I make a big bang for a small amount of investment is because I understand my market really, really well. And when you're investing further afield, it's not to say that you can't understand that market, but you are limited to knowing lots of the small moving parts that can affect it. Taking all that and putting it to one side just for a second and trying to keep it really simple on the bricks and mortar, the types of property. The big one for me that I avoid is new build properties. Now, I'm not saying there isn't deals to be done, especially if you time the market right and the year end or the end of the quarter right for the particular developer. There is deals to be had. However, when you're looking to buy properties, you want to add value and you want to buy below market value. Now, I'm not saying you won't be able to buy below market value, but it's going to be very, very hard to add value to what is effectively a brand new property, which has got everything added already to it, apart from maybe a loft conversion or garage conversion. There's very, very little chance you're going to have land to build on or be able to convert that property into multiple dwellings or even split the rooms up even more than it has already. So new build properties for me, unless you're buying it at a significant discount, they don't represent a great return on your money. And taking that to another level is flats. Now, we all know the story around service charges and ground rent and how that is a law to themselves at the moment, where companies can literally sell the freehold and it's managed by management companies who charge ridiculous amounts of fees and service charging. So if you're buying a flat, you're probably limited to what you can and can't do with that flat within the leasehold agreement that you're buying, if you're buying a leasehold flat. And the chances are you're going to have huge costs outside of your mortgage that you wouldn't have on a freehold property. So straight away, they do scream alarm bells. And I'm not saying I've never bought flats, and I've done pretty well on the ones that I have bought. And look, I've got 2 purchases going through right now, but they're ex-local authority flats, which means the ground rent and the service charge are ridiculously low. They are significantly below market value. The leasehold restrictions don't represent what's out there in some of the new build stuff today. So I can actually carve up some of those flats and get another bedroom out of them. So there's opportunities there, even though it's not the type of property that I would normally go for. But the key thing is with the ones that I'm buying is they are cheap. And that is absolutely fundamental when you're considering any single deal. Next one for me is land. Now, I see land at auctions always, without doubt, without exception, go for way over market value, without planning permission. And the reason being is the hope value. Now, a lot of deals that I'm involved in, a lot of deals that I have been involved in, we've always talked about selling land without planning permission at auction because you have an abundance of retail investors and they will overpay because they have convinced themselves that they will be able to do something with this land. And the chances are that they've convinced themselves they'll be able to do much more with it than they could physically could ever get in terms of planning. So for me, buying land at places like auction or on the open market is a big no-no because you can find yourself trying to convince yourself a reason to buy it. And we all know in property, you should think poker, which is always find a reason not to buy. Always find a reason to fold your hand. Because when the right deal comes along, like when you get the right hand in poker, you know it's the right deal and you'll never ever fold your hand. And that sort of leads me nicely onto the next type of properties you should avoid, which is the already done properties. The already refurbished houses, flats, bungalows, commercial property, whatever it is. If you're a property investor, you're here to make money. I know that there is a value on buying something which is already done, already tenanted, and it gives you a return. But if you want a recipe for the quickest way to tie up all of your money, it's to buy the properties that you cannot add any value to. And you're actually very vulnerable to any changes in the market because the chances are you're buying at the height of the market, a property that is already done. So if there is anything that happens that goes against that market, you're going to see the biggest downturn. It's not going to be the people who invest in properties at the lower end of the market and add significant value, because if there's a downturn, they haven't actually lost anything apart from equity, whereas you're losing hard cash that you've spent buying those properties. So avoid the already done properties. However, they're great for rent-to-renters. Now, I don't speak a lot about rent-to-rent, but rent-to-renters, they will spend huge amounts of time trying to find properties that they can eventually get hold of the landlord. And then they've got to convince the landlord that they'll take their 3-bed and turn it into a 5-bed and invest money making it compliant just so they can get some rental income, renting it as a HMO or serviced apartment that will cover the landlord's rent, and then they'll make their revenue on top of it. Now, rent-to-renters are missing the trick, because if you buy a property which is already done, already compliant, all the money's been spent by the investor, you don't have that capital outlay, which, if you're involved in rent-to-rent, is absolutely where you want to be. And then lastly for me, and don't get me wrong, there is loads and loads of different properties I could talk about, but I want to bring you a really quick, sharp midweek video. So the last one for me, which is not going to be very popular, a lot of people are going to disagree with it, but I don't care, is buying properties purely to flip on and not understanding what the multiple different rental markets are. Now, you see it on TV shows, Homes Under the Hammer, all of these things, and you hear about it from anyone at a networking event. They will talk about how they bought a property to flip on, but they ended up spending more money, they didn't anticipate all of the costs, and they were lucky if they broke even, but they may have made a loss. And the final sentence that they always finish on is, well, for me, it was quite an enjoyable journey and I learned a lot. No, you should not be flipping properties with a view that you are just going to go along for the journey to learn. You need to make money. And the problem is people think that if they buy a property a little bit cheaper than what the other ones are selling for, they can just tidy up the kitchen, put a lick of paint on, and that's enough to sell it and make a profit. That, unfortunately, isn't always the case. Now, I'm not saying you can't buy low, add value and sell high. I do it all the time. But what you can't do is think that you can just pick up a property which is a little bit cheaper than the rest of the stuff selling on the street, and you can literally spend 2, 3, 4, 5,000 and you'll make 20, 30, 40,000. It's very, very unlikely that those numbers are going to materialize into the actual spend. And the reason why they're buying it is because people like you and me know that there isn't enough margin in it when you take in the true costs. So you must avoid buying these quick flips that look like they will make you a quick buck, albeit relatively low, because the time it takes, the money it takes, and the hurdles that can come against this sort of thing means that your already really tight margin will literally disappear overnight when you hit the first hurdle. It is not worth doing. That is why you have to think, like I said earlier on, poker. Get rid of the hand, fold the hand, say no to the deal. It's not worth your time. The amount of times I get called every single week for a 20 to 30K flip, according to the agent or the sourcer. And look, 20 or 30,000 is a good chunk of money. But when you add the stamp duty and you add the legal fees and you add the interest costs and you add the refurb budget, the real refurb budget, that 20 or 30K is probably more like 15 or 20. And regardless really if it is a quick flip, you've got to buy it, you've got to then refurbish it, you've then got to get it cleaned, you've then got to get it listed, you've then got to get it marketed, you've then got to get it sold, you've got to go through the legals. And look, you'll be really lucky to get that done within 3 to 6 months. And 3 to 6 months, that means you've got to tie up your trusted builders. And if you're not using trusted builders, you've got another risk factor of that margin being eaten alive by people, builders, throwing stuff at you that you aren't expecting. So you're tying up your trusted builders when they could be on another deal that is making you 60, 80, 100 grand. And then if the market does wallop you in the face and it does turn or the interest rates change, you need to be able to rent that property out. And unfortunately, a lot of these properties, they're in a completely different market, a completely different area that has one rental market, which is the family rental market, which in my experience doesn't give a great return, full of headaches, full of problems, and probably the most likely to have issues in these sorts of circumstances. So avoid them like the plague. And look, you can spot them a mile off. They're the ones that hit right move at night with a estate agent, might have 2 agents on. And look, they're probably priced 15, 20,000 below everything else in the street. And that means that everyone and their mother and all of their competition, all of the retail investors are all chasing the same agent, trying to get the same info and trying to get that same property bought with the same schoolboy era tactic of it will make me a quick buck, and it won't. So midweek video done and dusted. Hope you found the content rich. Those are the properties not to buy. Catch you all on Sunday.